All right, let's jump to pass catches. Headlined by Nico Collins, who we heard from, talking about the Texans getting their swagger back in Week 4.
We needed this one just to get our confidence, get our swagger back, man. Happy everybody came out healthy, got the dub, front of the fans, man, division, man. No better feeling. And mindset would just come out and just be me. You know, not making a moment big than what it is. Never my number to call, go make the play for the team. You know, same thing I've been doing, just one play at a time.
Nico who? Nico who?
Who? Oh, 12. Nah. It was fun. I respect 38 over there. It was fun. It was fun. Good matchup. But most importantly, we got that dub. That's all that mattered to me.
Some respectful fun at the expense of L'Jarius Sneed from Nico Collins. It was a tough start to the season for Nico, but trending in the right direction, and he gets about as good of a matchup as possible, Matthew, with this banged-up Baltimore defense.
Yeah, it's not just a soft front in Baltimore, but it's also a soft backside.
Right.
Yeah.
Soft all around.
Yeah, the secondary, it's just soft all around.
Like the Michelin Man.
Pretty much. It's a good call on that. Ravens have allowed the most receptions on deep passes this season. No team has allowed more, right? They've also, by the way, given up the second most touchdowns deep as well. So you think about Collins here, who's should get a massive target share, by the way. All three wide receivers that have seen at least a 22% target share against Baltimore this year have scored at least 17 fantasy points, and Nico Collins, we expect, very easily will get more than a 22% target share in a game in which the Texans are favored, but only by 1.5, so I don't think suddenly they're running the ball a lot in the second half. I do think Baltimore will be able to keep it close enough. They're going to take deep shots to Nico Collins. He's my wide receiver 3 this week. You know, normally a wide receiver 1, but I literally have him as a top 3 play this week. He makes the love list.
Yep, first 3 weeks for the Texans offense was exceedingly grim, but I think you do have to regress a bit to the fact that new offensive coordinator, remodeled offensive line, CJ Stroud getting more accustomed to having a bit more ownership of the line of scrimmage. So I do think there is some optimism that the talent can kind of bear out and this team can start trending in the right direction. I don't think it's going to be an elite offense because the offensive line is just so tough, and I don't think Stroud is like a top 8 guy like he looked like he might be, but still there is some upside. Cappy America question, trade Nico Collins for Marion Hampton.
I like that. I mean, look, I think it's a fair trade. I think if we redrafted today, Nico Collins still goes as a top 10 wide receiver. I think Marion Hampton still goes, obviously, as a top 10 running back. So I think it's a fair trade. Again, you know, depends on what you need. If you need more running back help, then yes. If Nico Collins was your only good wide receiver, I probably wouldn't. But I think rest of the season, again, Hampton's my ride or die. I'm not particularly objective here. I would prefer Hampton to Collins, but it's close.
Yep, I agree. I think I'd lean Hampton, just higher upside. I understand that the Joe Alt thing isn't ideal, but still Hampton was able to produce. He's shown that he's getting work in the pass game, and he's just completely uncontested in that backfield now. So I would lean Hampton as well, but
I think better chance of touchdown. But again, like it's super close right there. So just really about what you need.
Yep. All right, I just wanted to highlight Puka Nacua, who obviously is the best wide receiver in football at the moment. He's going to be number 1 in your rankings probably for the foreseeable. But I just want to highlight the gap between him and everyone else. He has set his receiving prop has been bouncing around from 95.5 to 96.5. For context, last week it was set at about 90.5, and then the second highest guy was like JSN at 80.5. So he is that far. He's like 15% ahead of the rest of the NFL. Like guys like when CeeDee Lamb is healthy, he's set in the high 70s. Jamar Chase, when he has Burrow, same, like low 80s. Like Puka Nacua, this could be a record-breaking type of season that, ironically, hasn't really been seen since his predecessor in the slot for LA, Cooper Kupp in 2021. So Puka Nacua, we spoke about this briefly on our date in Italy via Dallas, that Puka Nacua, if you could have one player in fantasy the rest of the way, it's probably him.
I was in a draft last night. I literally did a Guillotine League draft last night. You can always start a league any week you want in Guillotine League at guillotineleagues.com. And I had the number 2 overall pick. I took Puka.
Yep.
Yeah.
Who went 1? Bijan?
Saquon, Eagles fan.
Terrible pick.
Well, I agree with you. But whatever. Guy's an Eagles fan. What are you going to do? No, Bijan ended up going 3rd, even though he's on a bye this week, which is kind of dicey.
Bijan, by the way, is on pace for like the 2nd most scrimmage yards in NFL history. Feels like we don't talk about Bijan. Like Puka's having an amazing season. Jonathan Taylor's probably been the best pure runner. But Bijan Robinson is an absolute monster, and yeah, he should be a top 3 pick in the rest of the season outlook. Let's talk about Xavier Worthy, who there's a lot of uncertainty about Worthy coming into last week's matchup against Baltimore. He's wearing the shoulder harness. What's his usage going to be? Looked pretty good, pretty encouraging in that performance against the Ravens.
23% target share, 2 end zone targets as well. Average depth of target of 17 yards. They weren't afraid to take deep shots for him. They were looking for him when they got in close. He played a lot of snaps, a lot of shares. And now you get this Jacksonville Jaguars defense that's good against the run, but is still bottom 12 as a defense in terms of reception yards and points allowed to opposing wide receivers. So I do think Xavier Worthy has a nice game. I was a top 12 play this week. No pressure, Xavier Worthy, if you're watching, but I'm starting you against Connor Rodgers, and I literally need you to have like a 50-point game.
Yeah, that's probably not going to happen, but could get loose for a deep one. Do you think, in terms of trading Xavier Worthy or his value, what are you doing in regard to Rashee Rice coming back in a couple of weeks? Do you think now is the time to try and sell high on Xavier Worthy coming off a decent showing, or do you just ride it out because everyone knows that Rice is coming back?
I think you ride it out, to be perfectly honest. I don't know that we have any, like we've seen it with Kelsey, who's, like, I think Patrick Mahomes is good enough.
Yep.
And this offense has the potential to be good enough that it can support 2 fantasy-relevant wide receivers the way that the Rams do with Nakua and Adams. Not that I'm saying they're going to become Adams and Nakua, but they can't run the ball.
Yeah.
And their defense isn't as good or as intimidating as his years past, so I think they'll be throwing more. Mahomes looks awesome and locked in.
Yep. Question from Mike Schubert. Trade Scatterboo for Xavier Worthy. Need a wide receiver after the Nabler went down.
Yeah, Malik Neighbors. I don't have a problem with that. Like, I think that's a fair trade because both guys have a lot of volume right now. Scatterboo in a couple of weeks is going to get Tyrone Tracy back, who's going to cut into the workload. Xavier Worthy is going to get Rashee Rice in a couple of weeks back. So, yeah, I think that's actually a fairly fair trade. But if you need a wide receiver after Neighbors went down and you have some running back depth, I like that trade. It's a fair trade. That's what I would say. It just depends on sort of what you need.
I think a lot of Scatterboo's game is going to look like the Chargers game, where it's a ton of volume, not a great deal of efficiency, and then you've got the Tyrone Tracy return looming over his potential usage.
He'll get some goal line work, though. I mean, this is, you know.
Yeah.
And I do think Jackson Dart being the new starting quarterback and his ability to run opens things up for Scatterboo. Like, again, mobile quarterbacks generally open up things for running backs.
Yep. Okay. I'll throw out Tedero McMillan for the love list. I think that T-Mac, it's been underwhelming is not the right word, but he hasn't had this huge explosion game yet. And the Panthers have been so inconsistent. Well, they've been consistently bad outside of the Falcons game, where I don't think T-Mac is getting a ton of attention, but this guy just gets a massive target share. He's awesome. And the Panthers are going to be in throw scripts constantly because they're just not very good. Like T-Mac last week, he was set, his receiving prop was the same as Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like, we just don't think about him that way at all. But because they have to throw so much, and because, you know, the Lions run so much, and because the Bryce Young is going to be playing from behind so much, like, he's just the guy who is going to, I think, average like 65 receiving yards per game and have 5 to 6 catches, and then should get in the end zone more than he has to this point. So T-Mac is a guy I'd actually buy low on because I just don't think he's getting a ton of attention because he hasn't had the explosion game, but it's coming at some point soon.
Look, talent and opportunity. We know his talent. It's off the charts. He's got the opportunity. He's the only guy there. He's got a massive target share. The offensive struggled. They need to get it going, but I like the call, and I think there's a chance that they get it going this week as well.
Yep. Another guy who could get it going in a very favorable matchup is Sam Laporta, who gets the Bengals, who might be the most favorable matchup in the league, particularly against tight ends.
They've given up the 5th most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. And in fact, teams that face the Bengals average 10 tight end targets a game. 10 tight end targets a game. So it's just, the point is that whoever's the quarterback that's facing the Lions, they're seeing something in the defense that allows them to continually target their tight end. So Laporta, who's, you know, obviously a superstar, I'm as a top 5 play this week against Cincy.
Yep. The Lions are a strange team in terms of just their distribution of where all the yards go because they're awesome, and so they're leading all the time, and they love to run the ball with Gibbs and Montgomery, but they just play so fast, and their target share in the pass game is so streamlined to Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, and Jameson Williams to a lesser extent. So even though they run the ball a ton, like Jared Goff every year is like top 3 in passing yards. Like this team just gets a ton of volume because they always have the ball.
And they're in scoring position often. You know what I mean? And so it's you know, one of the elite offenses in the NFL. And so I'm with you. You know what I mean? I just sort of think that it's a pretty good matchup, and it's just in time for Sam Laporta. Sam Laporta has been bad this year. You know how I know? Because he's on my team in our league. Yeah, he's been brutal.
Yeah.
I passed up Tyler Warren for you, Sam Laporta.
Yeah.
I have a lot of Tyler Warren, but
that's okay.
Yeah, but in this case, I try to do something different. It was dumb.
Yeah.
Should have picked up Tyler Warren in every league.
All right, let's go to others receiving votes. Headlined by friend of the show, Jakobi Meyers, the perennially one of the most underrated players in football.
I agree. He's had only one game this year below a 28% target share. Gets open, targets are earned. Jakobi Meyers has earned a lot of targets. Nice matchup against the Colts, by the way, as Indianapolis has allowed the third most yards to the slot. Kenny Moore, their slot corner, their talented slot corner, he's still out for a couple of weeks. Jakobi Meyers, top 20 play for me this week. How about the guy he's facing that game, Michael Pittman, who has at least 24% target share in 3 out of 4 games so far this year. Raiders have allowed the third most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. I feel like we've talked a lot. The Hunter Henry of this year, Alec Ayomanor, the rookie wide receiver for the Titans. I'm at wide receiver 35, but like he's coming, and we talked about this with Connor the other day. The underlying usage for him is unbelievable. He leads the team in target share, in average depth of target, and end zone targets. They're looking for him often, they're looking for him deep, and they're looking for him when he gets in close. And so Calvin Ridley, who played only 54% of the snaps last week, hampered a little bit by injury. We don't know his status for Sunday, but either or, it feels like Ayomanor has taken over this receiver room. I'm at wide receiver 35, but you like the match with Arizona. He makes the love list, others receiving votes. And how about 2 tight ends for you that we saw both play on Monday Night Football? Mason Taylor against the Cowboys. You had me at Dallas. Cowboys allowing the third highest catch rate to opposing tight ends. Every single week, Mason Taylor's target share has increased. Like they need somebody opposite Garrett Wilson, and feels like Mason Taylor is the guy that they like. And then finally, Darren Waller, one of my favorite players in the NFL. If you know his story, he's an easy guy to root for. Came back on Monday night, catches the 2 touchdowns. Didn't play a ton of other snaps, like had only 4 targets. 3 of them he caught, 2 of them were touchdowns. That's unsustainable. But he was targeted on 40% of his routes in the season debut. And the Panthers have allowed the 6th most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. So it's a good matchup here. And, and as Tyreek Hill is out for the year, they're looking for answers in Miami.
Yep. I feel like Darren Waller is going to have a lot of games where it's like 3 for 26 and a touchdown, which gets you to 11, 12 points.
That's right.
Which is handy enough. I want to hone in on a couple of these guys, starting with Alec Ayomanor, who is, as Calvin Ridley continues to go down and plummet, Ayomanor has to come up. And I think that when you're looking for things to really radically change after 4 weeks of the season, you want variance. And what creates variance? Youth. Like someone like the Arizona offense, the Arizona pass game, kind of just is what it is, I think, at this point. Like Kyler Murray, you're not going to see anything drastically different. With Cam Ward and Alec Ayomanor, whose sample in the NFL is 4 weeks, plenty can change, and I think it can only really get better for these guys. And even though Cam Ward hasn't been great, the efficiency hasn't really been there, I've seen enough in terms of the talent and what he can do to believe that he can really rise up the rest of the season, and Ayomanor will be the primary beneficiary.
Yeah, could not agree more with that. It has to get better, because not only does it have to get better, it will get better.
Yeah.
Because either Cam Ward gets better, or they replace him, or Brian Callahan gets replaced as well. So the other thing that you like here, of course, is the Arizona Cardinals have a bottom 5 pass defense in the NFL. And so Ayomanor, who's had a long stretch here of tough defenses, the quarterback, the whole offense, I think it gets a little bit easier starting this week. Not saying any game in the NFL is easy, but
probably the easiest matchup he's had so far was against the Colts, and that's where he started to break loose a little bit. And speaking of those Colts, Jakobi Meyers, who gets the Colts this week, Xavier Howard might be the single most destructive player in the NFL right now. Xavier Howard is done. Yeah. He can't guard anyone. The Rams targeted him relentlessly, and if Jakobi Meyers is going to get matched up against Xavier Howard, then that is very good for Jakobi Meyers and big trouble for Xavier Howard, who was an elite cornerback at one point in the NFL, but just isn't there at the moment.
No, it doesn't seem like it.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotoWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest RotoWorld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.